I thought we would take a little walk down memory lane because 6 years ago, one of the most fun games I have ever been at, one of the most fun games I've ever had the opportunity to cover, happened down in Georgia, down in Atlanta. It was game 5 of the 2019 NLDS. If you just bring up the fact, I mean, hey, you remember that game when the Cardinals scored 10 in the first? Yes. I think all Cardinal fans still remember that day fondly. And 6 years, it seems like it was a lot more recent than that, honestly.
Yeah, I guess anytime you like invite the COVID into the middle of a timeline, it feels like it's forever ago, but also like it just happened yesterday because you can remember where you were. Obviously, a real nail biter of a game. No, it wasn't. And that's what makes it so crazy. It was a nail biter of a series, and you go to a decisive game 5, and everything that leads into that, you're like, I can remember going into that game thinking, all right, they're just going to have to try to scratch a run or two across early. And man, everything that they were getting in that first inning, it felt like at a certain point in the inning, you go, okay, this game is over. And your jaw is on the floor because you can't believe that the game is actually over before the Braves even got to bat. But it's not the way that you felt about that game going into it, with the way that series had gone. That's, I think, part of what made it so impossible. It didn't compute that was happening for the Cardinals when it was happening. And you change pitchers and you go to another one. It's still the Cardinals are piling on runs. It was absolutely surreal to watch on television, and so I'm sure surreal to be in the building for that game.
Yeah, here's a rundown, Brenden. Here is what that first inning looked like on that day. Dexter Fowler was your leadoff guy, and I'm going to butcher the name of the pitcher for the Braves on this this day. What was it?
Foltynewicz.
Yes, it was. Dexter Fowler leads off with a walk. Ground out.
Started innocently enough.
Bunt ground out by Kolten Wong. So already you have one out. Kolten.
And by the way, like that shows you they're playing to just try to get a run. They're playing like this is going to be a 2-1 game, and they're like, dude, we got the leadoff base runner on. Bunt him over, get Dexter Fowler into scoring position. We might get a run. That's legitimately how they were playing the inning to start the damn game.
Yeah. It goes from there. Paul Goldschmidt then with a single, it's to the shortstop. Then Marcell Ozuna, Braves legend Marcell Ozuna, singles to right, scores Fowler. Yachty reaches on an error by the first baseman, who would have been Freddie Freeman in that game. Matt Carpenter walks, Tommy Edman doubles. All of this too, it all seems so innocent as all of these are happening.
Until the Edman double, there really wasn't anything that was, that noteworthy. It was like, it wasn't like an avalanche until you got to that point, and then it started to feel that way. By the way, you talk about how long ago this was. Paul DeYoung intentionally walked. That's what came next before the pitcher spot comes up. Right? That's like they're giving Paulie D a free base in the middle of this when you're like, they're still playing it like, hey, we're gonna max this out. We're gonna limit the damage here.
Yeah.
Surreal to look at this box score again.
Jack Flaherty then walks with the bases loaded. Dexter Fowler doubles, Kolten Wong doubles. Before a line out by Paul Goldschmidt finally to get the second out of the inning. Then Marcell Ozuna strikes out, but wait, the ball gets away from the catcher to score Kolten Wong and put Ozuna on first base before Yachty finally grounds out to end the inning with a score then of 10-0. The Cardinals started the game with a 53% chance to win. That was what the odds were at the start of the game. They had a 53% chance to win. They ended the first inning with a 98% chance to win the game before the Braves ever got an at-bat.
It's unbelievable. That when has that ever happened that you could say before one of the teams got to bat that the playoff game was over? The series deciding playoff game was over, and it wasn't hyperbole to say that it was over. It was done. I can remember thinking, Jack Flaherty hasn't thrown a pitch yet. There's no reason not to do a bullpen game here and throw him in game 1 of the NLCS. Like I was wondering if they would consider doing that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because the Cardinals, if you did remember, did make a move in the game that kind of is really unprecedented. Get to that in just a bit, but remember that all content here on STL Sports Central brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours, and on December 1st is when we launch the DraftKings Sportsbook in Missouri. New customers can get $300 in bonus bets when we launch on December 1st with your $5 bet when we go live. That's just a $5 bet using promo code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live on December 1st. That's code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. So back to, you mentioned that before Jack Flaherty even throws a pitch. I remember we were sitting there and you weren't there, right? Were you down there at that one?
I covered the other 2 games in that series in Atlanta, but then I flew back. I was actually living in Texas at the time, and I didn't fly back for just game 5 because I knew at that point that I was going to the NLCS to cover it. And I don't remember if we already knew if it was I don't think we knew that it was the Nationals yet for sure. I think the Dodgers and the Nationals played either that night or the next day, whatever it was, because I remember knowing the Cardinals were advancing. I was hanging out with a buddy that night, and I believe that was the night of the Dodgers Nationals having an absolutely wild game, maybe misremembering some of the details, but it was like, am I going to DC or am I going to Los Angeles? I knew I was going to be covering some road games in that series, but no, I was not for game 5 because I knew I was saving the funds to go with KMOV at the time to go to 2019 NLCS.
Well, yeah. So you're sitting out there, and again, it's the first inning hasn't even ended yet, and already we're talking in the auxiliary press box out there in the Hank Aaron suites,
which I've now been to. Now that I was at the All-Star game this year, so I know what you're talking about.
So you're sitting. I mean, it's like, okay, are they going to throw Jack Flaherty? Like, is this going to happen? Are they going to warm somebody up? Like, he's already warm up. Do you at least just throw him an inning and get him the heck out of there? Like, how do you approach this? And then you look out there in the bottom of the first inning, and Harrison Bader's in the game. Harrison Bader was not in the starting lineup, and suddenly Harrison Bader is out in the outfield. And you're looking at this, you're like, okay, did somebody get hurt? Like, what's happening here in this moment? And find out after the game, talking to Matt Carpenter about it. And Matt Carpenter goes and pulls himself from the game, goes up to Mike Schilt in that moment and says, hey, take me out of the game. Like, we have 10 runs. We need defense.
Hands
take my
team.
glove out. Yeah.
Get the hands team in for the bottom of the first. That's right. Has that ever happened? There's no way that's ever happened in a game other than the one we're talking about in the playoffs in a decisive game that you go, yep, we're going to sub for defense. Normally you see that in the 8th inning, right? Guy takes his last at bat. Oh, he's probably not going to bat again. Carpenter's like, we need Bader's glove in center field. That's the only way we lose this game is some crazy stuff happening on defense. Get him in there. I love it.
The only other thing that I think is even comparable, at least in Cardinal history, if you remember Mark McGwire's last season with the Cardinals, when La Russa would bat him second in the lineup, he'd get that at bat in the first inning and then immediately be taken out of the game. So it was like, hey, we have our one bullet with Mark McGwire. We're going to let him swing for the fences, but we know that he is providing absolutely nothing else to us in this game outside of that one at bat, and we're getting him the heck out of there. Like, that's the only other thing that I can think that would even be somewhat comparable to this.